The perfect father. For most of my childhood, I honestly believed my family was the definition of normal. We lived in a quiet neighborhood where nothing dramatic ever seemed to happen. My younger brother and sister spent their afternoons riding bikes outside, while my mom cooked dinner and my dad followed. The same routine every single day without fail. He left for work before sunrise, came home just after dark, watched sports on Saturdays, and took us out for dinner every Sunday evening. Compared to the parents of my friends, he almost seemed boring. One friend's father bought a motorcycle during a midlife crisis. Another disappeared for a month hiking through Nepal. My dad, he barely changed his hairstyle in 15 years. But there was one person who always brought excitement into our home, my dad's closest friend, Marcus. Marcus was impossible not to like. He wore flashy clothes, ridiculous suede shoes in strange colors, and always carried expensive cologne that lingered after he left. My sister and I secretly nicknamed him Purple Shoes. He laughed loudly, brought gifts during holidays, and treated us like family. Then one winter evening, everything changed. Mom sat us down at the kitchen table with tears in her eyes and told us Marcus had died. At first, they didn't explain much. They only said he'd been attacked while walking home after a night out. Months later, when my parents thought we were old enough to understand, they finally revealed the truth. Marcus had been stabbed during a robbery. Apparently, someone tried mugging him outside a bar. Maybe Marcus fought back. Maybe he was too drunk to realize the danger. Either way, the attacker panicked and drove a knife into his chest before running off into the night. Dad took the news harder than anyone. Every year on the anniversary of Marcus's death, he became distant and quiet. Mom told us he attended vigils, spoke with detectives, and even helped organize public campaigns trying to identify the killer. Watching my father grieve like that deeply affected me. At the time, Marcus's death became the first real tragedy I had ever experienced. None of my grandparents had passed away yet. Even our pets were still alive. The idea that someone could violently steal a life felt impossible to understand. For months afterward, I walked around feeling like the world wasn't safe anymore. Eventually, life moved on. By the time I turned 17, my biggest concern was preparing for college applications and wondering whether my friends and I would drift apart after graduation. Everything felt normal again, until the night my father didn't come home. Mom casually told us he was staying overnight in the city after drinks with coworkers. I accepted the explanation without question, but what I didn't know was that she had been calling his phone for hours with no answer. The next morning, police officers arrived at our house. Not one or two officers either, an entire team. Some immediately began searching the house, while another sat down with my mother in the living room. I still remember the confusion, burning inside me as drawers opened downstairs and heavy. Footsteps echoed through the halls. Evidence. That was the word I overheard. Evidence for what? Mom eventually came upstairs looking pale enough to collapse. She told us Dad had been arrested. At first, she claimed there had been some terrible misunderstanding. But then the officers started carrying boxes out of his office. And that's when I realized our lives were about to fall apart. What the police uncovered inside my father's office would reveal a secret, life none of us could have imagined, and connect directly to Marcus's murder. My father's secret life. The hours after my father's arrest felt unreal. Police officers moved through our house carrying computers, folders, hard drives, and stacks of documents while my mother sat frozen at the kitchen table staring into space. My younger brother kept asking when Dad was coming home, but nobody answered him. At first, Mom truly believed there had been a mistake. She kept repeating the same thing over and over. Your father would never hurt anyone. But later that night, after several phone calls with lawyers and detectives, her confidence began to crack. Dad hadn't been arrested for one crime. He'd been arrested for several. The police accused him of running a massive illegal operation involving narcotics, trafficking across multiple cities. According to investigators, he used encrypted messaging services and fake identities to coordinate. For months afterward, I walked around feeling like the world wasn't safe anymore. Eventually, life moved on. By the time I turned 17, my biggest concern was preparing for college applications and wondering whether my friends and I would drift apart after graduation. Everything felt normal again, until the night my father didn't come home. Mom casually told us he was staying overnight in the city after drinks with coworkers. I accepted the explanation without question, but what I didn't know was that she had been calling his phone for hours with no answer. The next morning, police officers arrived at our house. Not one or two officers either, an entire team. Some immediately began searching the house, while another sat down with my mother in the living room. I still remember the confusion, burning inside me as drawers opened downstairs and heavy footsteps echoed through the halls. Evidence. That was the word I overheard. Evidence for what? Mom eventually came upstairs looking pale enough to collapse. She told us Dad had been arrested. At first, she claimed there had been some terrible misunderstanding. But then the officers started carrying boxes out of his office. And that's when I realized our lives were about to fall apart. What the police uncovered inside my father's office would reveal a secret, life none of us could have imagined, and connect directly to Marcus's murder. My father's secret life. The hours after my father's arrest felt unreal. Police officers moved through our house carrying computers, folders, hard drives, and stacks of documents while my mother sat frozen at the kitchen table staring into space. My younger brother kept asking when Dad was coming home, but nobody answered him. At first, Mom truly believed there had been a mistake. She kept repeating the same thing over and over. Your father would never hurt anyone. But later that night, after several phone calls with lawyers and detectives, her confidence began to crack. Dad hadn't been arrested for one crime. He'd been arrested for several. The police accused him of running a massive illegal operation involving narcotics, trafficking across multiple cities. According to investigators, he used encrypted messaging services and fake identities to coordinate deliveries worth millions. The man I thought spent his days buried in spreadsheets and office meetings had apparently been living a second life the entire time, and somehow nobody noticed. Not his coworkers, not his neighbors, not even us. The strangest part was how ordinary he had always seemed. He never flashed expensive watches or sports cars. We weren't insanely rich. Our home looked exactly like every other home on the street, but police claimed he had hidden accounts full of money my mother knew nothing about. The first time Dad called from jail, he denied everything. He said the authorities had confused him with someone else. He sounded calm, almost annoyed. For a moment, I actually believed him. Then came the second phone call. This time his voice was different, tired, defeated. That was when he admitted the truth. For years, my father had operated under a secret username on a private, encrypted network used by criminals all over the country. Through it, he arranged shipments, payments, and meetings while carefully hiding his identity from almost everyone around him. To the outside world, he was a quiet office worker. To dangerous people behind closed doors, a broker, a middleman, a man trusted by criminals. I remember sitting in my bedroom after hearing all this, staring at the wall for hours. Every memory I had of him suddenly felt fake. Birthday parties, family vacations, football games, movie nights. Had any of it been real, or had we simply been props inside a life he carefully manufactured? But even then, the worst part hadn't surfaced yet. That came 3 days later. Mom had gone to visit him with one of his attorneys. When she returned home, she looked like she had aged 10 years overnight. She called me downstairs after my siblings went to bed. Then she told me about Marcus, the conspiracy charge connected directly to his death. Police investigators had recovered encrypted conversations between my father and several associates. Hidden among thousands of messages were discussions about Marcus, supposedly stealing money from their operation, large amounts, enough to make dangerous people furious. At first they threatened him. Then they began discussing permanent solutions. My father participated in those conversations. That was the part I couldn't process. Not only had he known Marcus was going to die, he had helped arrange it. The robbery story had been fake from the beginning. Marcus hadn't been randomly attacked by a mugger outside a bar. Someone had been sent there specifically to kill him. I physically felt sick hearing it. The image that haunted me most wasn't the murder itself, it was remembering Marcus's funeral. I remembered my father hugging Marcus's wife while pretending to cry. I remembered him comforting Marcus's children, and the entire time he already knew the truth. Mom started believing Dad was some kind of psychopath. She said no normal human being could fake grief that convincingly. But part of me still struggled to accept it, because despite everything, he had also been my father, the man who taught me to ride a bike, the man who stayed awake helping me study for exams, the man who tucked us into bed every night. I couldn't make those two versions of him fit together in my head. Then the court hearings began, and with every new detail revealed, the monster hiding behind my father's ordinary smile became harder to ignore. During the trial, investigators uncovered one final secret about Marcus's murder. And it revealed my father may have been terrified for his own life too. The trial began 6 months after my father's arrest. By then, our family had already become local gossip. Reporters parked outside the courthouse almost every morning. Neighbors who once waved at us now avoided eye contact completely. Some parents even stopped letting their kids visit our house. It felt like we were being punished alongside him. Mom barely slept anymore. She spent most nights sitting silently at the kitchen table surrounded by legal paperwork while drinking coffee until sunrise. My younger siblings didn't fully understand what was happening, but they understood enough to know our lives had shattered. And every day the trial continued, things somehow got worse. Prosecutors painted my father as a calculating criminal who had hidden behind the image of a loving family man for nearly 2 decades. They showed records of encrypted communications, secret bank transfers, burner phones, and fake identities tied directly to him. The evidence was overwhelming, but none of it hit me as hard as hearing recordings from the investigation itself. The police had managed to decrypt thousands of messages from the network my father used. Most were cold business conversations, prices, shipments, routes, payments. Then they played the conversations about Marcus. The courtroom became completely silent. One investigator read portions aloud while jurors followed along on screens. Marcus had apparently been accused of quietly skimming money from several operations over the years. At first, the others suspected bookkeeping mistakes. Then someone gathered proof. From there, the tone of the messages shifted. Threats, anger, plans. I remember gripping the edge of my seat so tightly my hands hurt. One message from my father still echoes in my mind even now. If this leaks, all of us go down. That single sentence changed everything for me. Until then, I'd imagined my father ordering Marcus's death out of greed or revenge. But suddenly another possibility appeared. Fear. Real fear. The prosecution argued that my father willingly sacrificed his closest friend to protect his criminal empire. But part of me started wondering if he'd also been trying to protect himself, and maybe us too. According to investigators, the men involved in the organization were extremely violent. Several already had connections to kidnappings, assaults, and disappearances across multiple countries. If Marcus had truly stolen money from them, there may have been pressure placed on everyone involved to prove loyalty, including my father. Mom refused to entertain that idea. To her, Dad was simply evil. But I kept thinking about those messages. If this leaks, all of us go down. It didn't sound like confidence. It sounded like panic. Still, panic didn't excuse what happened. Marcus was dead because of decisions my father made. Nothing could change that. Halfway through the trial, prosecutors offered Dad a deal if he pleaded guilty to all charges, including conspiracy to commit murder. He could avoid a life sentence. Everyone expected him to fight the accusations. Instead, he accepted immediately. No dramatic speech, no emotional breakdown, just guilty. 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 Hearing those words nearly destroyed my mother. Even after everything revealed during the investigation, part of her still hoped he'd deny involvement until the very end. But he didn't. The judge eventually sentenced him to just under 20 years in federal prison. I remember turning to look at him as officers prepared to escort him away. For the first time in my life, he looked small. Not dangerous, not powerful, just tired. He glanced toward us briefly, but when our eyes met, he looked away almost immediately. That hurt more than anything else. Mom visited him a few times during the first year. Every visit ended badly. She said he rarely showed emotion and refused to fully explain why things happened the way they did. Eventually, she stopped going altogether. I tried once myself. I spent weeks debating whether I should see him. Despite everything, some part of me still needed answers. Maybe closure. Maybe just proof that the father I remembered had actually existed, somewhere beneath all the lies. But when I arrived at the prison, the guards informed me he had refused the visit. He couldn't do it, they said. At first I was angry. Then I realized the truth. He couldn't look me in the eye. Years have passed since then. He's scheduled for release soon, and lately I can't stop thinking about what happens next. Because no matter what he's done, he's still my father. But just when I thought my family's nightmare was finally ending, a letter arrived from prison containing one confession. My father had never told the police. The letter arrived 3 months before my father's scheduled release. It came in a plain white envelope with the prison's return address stamped across the corner. At first, I almost threw it away unopened. For years, I'd done everything possible to avoid thinking about him. I moved to another city, changed jobs twice, and tried building a life that had nothing to do with courtrooms, police reports, or whispered conversations behind my back. But the second I saw his handwriting, every memory came flooding back. I stared at the envelope for nearly an hour before finally opening it. Inside were 8 handwritten pages. No greeting, no apology, just a sentence written across the top. "There are things you deserve to know before I get out." I remember immediately feeling cold. The first few pages weren't shocking. He talked about prison life, how isolated he'd become, and how most of the men he once trusted either disappeared or turned against each other after the arrests. But then the letter shifted. He started writing about Marcus. According to my father, the situation had spiraled far beyond stolen money. Marcus had apparently threatened to cooperate with authorities after realizing how dangerous the organization had become. He wanted out completely. Worse, he supposedly kept records, names, transactions, hidden accounts, insurance, evidence powerful enough to destroy everyone involved. Dad claimed the others believed Marcus would eventually talk to police. That was when they decided he had to die. The most disturbing part? My father wrote that he initially refused. He claimed he argued for paying Marcus off or helping him disappear instead. But the others didn't trust that solution. They believed Marcus knew too much. Then came the line that made my stomach turn. They reminded me what happens to people who protect traitors. He never directly explained what that meant, but I understood anyway. Threats. Not only against him, against us. Dad wrote that one of the men casually mentioned my school during a meeting. Another referenced my younger sister by name. The message was clear. Cooperate, or your family suffers too. For the first time since his arrest, I actually felt afraid reading his words. Not because of him, but because I realized how close dangerous people may have been to our lives without us ever knowing. Still, even if the threats were real, he had choices. He could have gone to police. He could have run. Instead, he stayed involved. And Marcus died because of it. The final pages of the letter became more personal. He admitted he spent years pretending everything was normal because he believed he could keep his 2 lives separated forever. Family on one side, crime on the other. But eventually, those worlds collided. And when they did, everyone paid for it. Then near the very end, he wrote something that completely caught me off guard. "I never stopped loving you kids." That was the only real part of my life. I must have reread that sentence 20 times, because honestly, I still don't know whether to believe it. Can someone order the death of a friend and still genuinely love their family? Can a man spend years lying to everyone around him, while also being a good father at the same time? I still don't know the answer. After finishing the letter, I sat awake until sunrise thinking about visiting him once he gets released. Part of me wants to hear his side face to face. Another part wants to disappear completely and never see him again. Mom says reopening contact would destroy whatever healing I've managed to build over the years. My sister refuses to even speak his name anymore. My brother says he wants to meet him once just to get closure. As for me, I'm stuck somewhere in the middle. Because despite everything he did, despite Marcus, the lies, the violence, and the secrets, a small part of me still remembers the father who carried me on his shoulders during fireworks shows and taught me how to throw a baseball in the backyard. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all. Not that he was secretly a criminal, but that the good memories were real too. In a few months, my father will walk out of prison for the first time in nearly 20 years, and I still haven't decided whether I'll be there waiting for him or not.